friends. Welcome back to From the Dark Side. I'm your host, Sherry. Sorry I've been MIA a couple times recently. Just know that if I don't release an episode on any Monday morning, I feel horrible all day. I walk around feeling gloomy and off. I don't like feeling that way, so I'll try not to do that again. I needed a little more time with this one, though. I wasn't ready yet, so that's the reason for last week's absence. Today we've got a case that I remember well because it happened in March 2020 at the start of the pandemic. Luckily, it's a solved case. Back in 2020, a Nashville couple was found deceased in their car. By all accounts, it appeared it was a car accident. This car crashed, for sure, into a tree on a construction site. But police realized the two inside were dead from gunshot wounds instead. They were dead before the car ever crashed. This is episode 179, the case of Holly Williams and Bill Lanway. We're heading back to 2020 for this one. In fact, one day before the COVID-19 pandemic was announced. I think we can all remember what life was like during that time. I remember hearing about people getting COVID-19, but at that time it was always like a friend's cousin or someone distant. Then it was someone you knew. The next stage was someone in your house had it. I remember wearing masks everywhere and standing 6 feet apart from others. I remember we thought schools would be closed for 2 weeks. Instead, it turned into a whole year or two. It was a mess. Bill Lanway and Holly Williams are a couple who live in Nashville, Tennessee. Friends describe their relationship as toxic at best. Holly is 33 and Bill is 36. They have been dating for approximately 2 years. Holly had gotten a restraining order against Bill. She wanted to get away from him, but she just couldn't. Sometimes women in abusive relationships can't leave for fear of retaliation, and I think that's what was happening here. So when these two were found deceased in a car, and they both have gunshot wounds, the first thought is that this was a murder-suicide. Even friends of Bill assumed he shot Holly and then himself, but that wasn't the case at all. This was an outside party that did this. Holly Williams was born in Tennessee. She grew up one of a few siblings. Holly had some issues in childhood. She had a really bad relationship with her mother. She ended up cutting her mother off completely and went to live with her dad and stepmom. Even as an adult, her mother was a really sore subject, and Holly didn't like to talk about her. Holly eventually moved to Nashville and got a job as an esthetician. She loved Nashville and being in the big city. She loved Christmas time, and she always felt connected to Christmas because her name was Holly. She was described by her friends as one of those people that are so nice and trusting of everyone to the point where people actually took advantage of her. Although Holly had a difficult childhood, Bill grew up with issues as well. In 1986, Bill was 3 years old. He was with a babysitter while his parents went out. When his parents came home, they were arguing and screaming at each other. Bill's father took Bill, his mother, and the babysitter and held them hostage for a few hours at gunpoint. Bill's father was arrested and taken to have a mental health evaluation. But just 5 days later, he was released since he had good behavior and he was allowed to spend time with his family for the holidays. Yeah, you heard that right. The family that he tried to kill 5 days earlier. So on Thanksgiving Day, Bill's father showed up to the house and fatally stabbed Bill's mother right in front of him and his sister. His father went to prison, his mother is dead, and Bill saw the entire thing. Luckily, he had a loving aunt and uncle who took little Bill in and raised him as their own. Bill didn't let this tragedy with his parents define him. He thrived living with his aunt and uncle. He was popular in school and even voted best personality. When Bill grew up, he became an auto mechanic. Bill was known as the life of the party. He's always down to hang with friends. He was the center of attention in any room. He loved to drink and have fun. He was a happy and very awesome person to be around. So where did it all go wrong? Bill began seeing a young lady named Dana. Dana had just graduated high school and Bill was 4 years older. According to ABC's 2020, Dana and Bill found out she was pregnant just 6 months after they began dating. Dana gave birth to a little girl named Madison in 2006. Bill was over the moon. He was a loving and wonderful dad to Madison. Unfortunately, Madison got really sick one day, and it lasted for a few weeks. They took her to the doctor, and she was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. She went through lots of chemotherapy rounds and ended up getting cleared, but eventually the cancer returned. This time, it was way more aggressive. Madison passed away in 2011. She was only 5 years old. This really took a toll on both Bill and Dana, as you expected it would. I understand their pain. It's a club that no one wants to be a part of, and I absolutely hate it here. But Bill begins acting very angry all the time. He is a completely different person now. Dana, who also just lost her daughter, cannot deal with Bill acting this way and lashing out at her and damaging her items. After the funeral, Dana packed a box full of Madison's things and handed it to Bill. She told him they were done and she never wants to see him again. That was the end of their relationship. Bill shuts down and cuts everyone off. He holes up in the house and doesn't want to be around anyone. He went from a fun-loving guy to this angry dude full of rage. I do feel for Bill, but grief doesn't give you a free pass to be abusive. Eventually, his friends come back around and ask him to join them going out. Maybe getting out of the house and back into his old environment would do him some good. It seemed to work because Bill found himself laughing and talking again. In 2018, during one of his nights out in Nashville at a music festival, Bill met a young lady named Holly Williams. These two hit it off and began seeing one another, and for a while things seemed good. Bill moved into her apartment. They were a popular couple out in Nashville. They were often seen at bars and clubs and music festivals. But their relationship was beginning to crack. Bill was still depressed and grieving on the inside, and he was very jealous of all the attention Holly received. Holly turned heads everywhere she went and got a lot of attention from people when they were out at the Nashville nighttime scene. Bill would sometimes get violent towards Holly. She told friends that she was scared to death of him. In one instance in January 2020, just 2 months before their deaths, Bill attacked Holly and broke her windshield. She filed a restraining order against him. She also accused Bill of letting her little dog Max out of the house. She loved her dog Max more than anything. She posted on Facebook very frantically, telling people to look for Max. He was wearing a little sweater and he was out there cold and lost. She asked for prayers to help find him. Trigger warning. Just days later, Max was found dead on the road. He had been run over by a car, and Holly was the one who found him. Holly told friends she believed Bill killed Max by letting him out of the apartment and that he did it on purpose because he was mad at her. According to an interview with Holly's upstairs neighbor, I read this on the Texas Monthly website. Holly's upstairs neighbor heard every argument and said they were really bad. He works from home as a hypnotist, so his job requires absolute silence. He did these Zoom meetings with clients and he would hypnotize them into not smoking or overeating or whatever they needed. He needed silence, and instead he could hear things hitting the walls and Holly screaming and Bill yelling, all while he was giving these hypnosis sessions. Holly got so scared that she set up surveillance cameras inside her apartment and outside of her front door. From her phone, she was able to catch Bill coming into her apartment. Her deadbolt on the front door was a digital code, and Bill guessed it and entered the correct code. She saw on the camera Bill was walking around inside her apartment, which was really creepy. She also said that Bill could control the smart lights in her home right from his phone. So he would mess with the lighting in her home, which is terrifying. She would be sitting in her kitchen eating dinner late at night, and he would just turn off the light from his phone. He did this as a way to remind her he was in control. Holly couldn't separate from Bill, though. It could be that she was scared of what he would do to her if she broke up with him. He already allegedly did something to her dog in retaliation for her getting a restraining order. Who knows what he could do next? On March 13th, 2020, Nashville Emergency Services received a call from a construction worker in the area. He says there's a white Acura crashed into a tree on his job site. He says there's a man and woman in the vehicle and it doesn't look good. When police arrive, they find the body of Bill Lanway. He's on the passenger side floorboard. The way his body was described was he was face down on the passenger floorboard with his feet towards the ceiling of the car. The body of Holly Williams was on the back floorboard between the front and back seats. At first, this looked like a tragic car accident where they weren't wearing seatbelts and that sent them flying into some strange positions. But a closer look revealed these two have gunshot wounds. So everybody knows these two have a horrible relationship. Bill was being abusive. Holly told friends she was scared of him. So everyone at first assumed this was a murder-suicide. Bill shot Holly and then he turned the gun on himself. A lot of people who were once close to Bill wouldn't attend his funeral because they assumed he murdered Holly before turning the gun on himself. Things about the scene aren't adding up. Holly had a gunshot wound to the head and the chest. Bill had 2 gunshot wounds to his head. It would be incredibly difficult to shoot yourself in the head twice. The windows in the car are broken, but there's no broken glass around. Plus, why is Holly in the back seat? Bill is in the front passenger side. Neither of them have their cell phones on them. But most importantly, there's no gun. You can't hide the gun after you're dead. Police were keeping quiet about their findings to preserve the investigation, so they can't disclose that there was no gun found and all these other things that don't add up. So the rumors just swirled that Bill killed Holly and then himself. If Bill didn't do this, then who did it? So remember, Holly has all these cameras around her apartment. Well, she had one outside at her front door, too. So police check these cameras and they see that the night before, around 11:30 p.m., Holly and Bill are together and they walk out of the house. They look like they're getting ready to head to the car to go out somewhere. When they reach Holly's car, they're outside of the camera, but the camera picks up audio coming from a ways away. In the audio, you hear multiple gunshots. Then you hear Holly scream. Police now know this area is the murder scene. Then the killer drove them to the construction site and let the car run into a tree. An investigation is underway trying to figure out who would want to hurt this couple. They hated each other at times, but who hated the two of them? Police learned that Bill was unemployed and Holly was an esthetician, but she had a lot of really nice things that she would have a hard time affording on her salary. She had expensive taste. How was she doing it? So Holly, at 33 years old, has been working as a high-end escort since she was 18 years old. She would hook up with men who hired her and spend weekends with them or whatever they wanted. She was going on lavish vacations with these men who hired her, and she was getting paid an enormous amount of money, sometimes $20,000 to $30,000 at a time. Some bought her cars and gifts and pretty much anything she wanted. The name she went by was Layla Love. Everyone in Holly's circle knows she's an escort. It wasn't a big secret or anything like that, except for Bill. Bill allegedly had no idea his girlfriend was an escort, but Bill is currently unemployed, so he has a lot of time on his hands. He found Holly's work phone and all the contents on it. We know this because police found a phone number on both Holly's work phone and Bill's phone, which is interesting, but they still have a lot more work to do. Bill had messaged one of Holly's longtime clients, a man who is a radiologist. He threatened to tell his wife and office staff all about his hookups with Holly. This scared the man enough that he contacted Holly and asked if this guy is really going to call my wife. Holly said, no, don't worry about it. He's just jealous and he won't be an issue. But Bill later contacted the guy's wife and told her all about her husband, Mr. Radiologist, cheating on her. They review the camera footage from inside and outside Holly's apartment. They see recently 3 men had come to her door. They are knocking on the door and telling Holly they just need to talk to her. The footage from inside the apartment showed Holly nervously walking around, and at one point she gets a long bar and props it against the door in case they tried to get in. So who were these 3 men? Well, they were trying to conceal their faces. They looked youngish, definitely 30s or younger. One had his hood up, and you catch a glimpse of his face at one point, even though he was looking down because he knows there's a camera there. So a number that keeps popping up on Holly's phone is linked to a man named Jimmy Green. This was an obvious alias and not his real name. The phone number was linked to an email address, jimmygreen34@gmail.com. With Gmail, you don't have to give your real name. You could put anything in there. So the name on the email address was Agent 47. Agent 47 is a character's name from the video game Hitman. So you're going to hear a few names, and I'll try to piece this together as best as I can, and hopefully your head isn't spinning, but there are going to be a few names. Police are doing a phenomenal job investigating this case, and they were able to track down the IP address. And there they find a man named Adam Carey. Adam looks very similar to one of the men who was at Holly's door. Adam is a former Special Ops Marine. Adam had been in contact with a man named Brian Brockway. Brian, like Adam, is a former Special Ops Marine. These 2 seem like they're not the masterminds here. Who are they getting their instructions from? Enter Gil Peled. Gil is 47 years old. Gil is the owner of a security firm. He's the former bodyguard of Charlie Sheen, and his wife is a celebrity salon owner. Gil is well known in the Hollywood area, but he and his wife had recently moved to Texas since his security business wasn't doing so well. Gil is also former Israeli Defense Force. These 3 guys were once certified badasses. Police were able to find a string of communication between these 3 men, most notably a document called Tennessee Sitrep. Sitrep is a military term which is shorthand for situational report. The sitrep stated that they had finished their surveillance of Holly and they knew her address and what kind of car she drove. They also confirmed in the report that a man named Bill Lanway lived with her. Why are these 3 so interested in a couple that lives hundreds of miles away? Enter another character in our story, a man named Eric Mond. Eric is 46 years old and basically a local celebrity in the city of Austin, Texas. He's the owner of Mond Auto Group. The company was founded by his grandfather, and Eric is now one of the owners. He does these commercials, and he's well known in the state of Texas. Eric is a very wealthy man. He lives in a multi-million-dollar mansion with his wife and children. Why is Eric now involved in our story? He lives 900 miles away from Nashville, where Holly and Bill were killed. Police learned that Eric had recently texted Holly, who he knows as Layla Love, and told her something along the line of, "Hey, beautiful, I'm going to be in Nashville next weekend. Let's meet up at the bar again." So Eric had hired Holly, aka Layla Love, before to be his escort for the weekend when he was in Nashville, and now he wants to do it again. This is February 2020, just 1 month before Holly and Bill were killed. The reason Eric was coming to Nashville was to visit his son in college, but he wanted to hook up with his escort friend. As I mentioned earlier, Bill Lanway had recently found Holly's work phone and decided to look through it. Its contents revealed that Holly had this side job as an escort. As you can imagine, he wasn't happy about this. Holly sent a message to Bill around this time that read, Sorry, babe, I've been so busy catching up on ad stuff and emails and trying to screen new potential clients. It's overwhelming, but I need to do this to save my finances and my apartment. I hope you don't go back to your jealous ways and start bitching at me anytime I have to do work stuff. Just remember, I would not be in this position and would not have to put myself out there to gain new clientele if you hadn't run off my consistent long-time clients. Bill had gotten another client's number from her work cell phone, and it was none other than Eric Mond. Bill must have Googled him or whatever and saw he was this super wealthy guy, so Bill decided he was going to blackmail him. Bill reached out to Eric by phone. In an anonymous text message with a burner number, he says in not so many words, "I know you've been banging my girlfriend. You need to pay me $25,000 or I'm going to let everyone know." So Bill was going to expose this secret that Eric sleeps with escorts to Eric's wife, his rich friends at the country club, and his business partners. He's 100% blackmailing him. Eric has plenty of money, so it would be nothing at all for him to go withdraw $25,000 and make this go away. Eric had recently hired Gill's security company to do security at his car dealership because they had a lot of homeless people who would try to sleep in between the cars and stuff. Eric tells Gill that he got this weird text message, find out who sent it, and find out Layla Love's real identity. Gill is no stranger to weird requests. He was Charlie Sheen's bodyguard at one point. Can you imagine trying to keep Charlie Sheen in line? Especially the time period when Gill was Charlie's bodyguard. It was during 2011, during that really crazy time period when he was fired from 2.5 Men and had a public meltdown. You guys remember the tiger blood and all that? Gill reached out to Adam Carey and Brian Brockway to do this investigation. Brian's brother owned a security firm as well, and Brian gave him some lie about a couple was looking for their daughter who was last known to be working as an escort in Nashville. His brother does his job well and says, well, I found the missing girl. Her name is Holly Williams. Here's where she lives and works. This guy had no idea the real reason for why he's doing this. On March 11th, 2020, just about one day before Bill and Holly were killed, Bill picks up the phone and dials Eric's house number. Eric was furious about this. Not only did Bill have Eric's home phone number now, but he also knew his wife could have answered the phone. Brian Brockway told Gill that he and Adam Carey could take these two out for $60,000 each. Gill presents this offer to Eric, and Eric is like, sold, do it, just get these two out of my life. Even though Holly knows nothing about this extortion blackmail plot, Eric wants to get rid of her too. According to reporting by Nashville.gov, the police investigation found that on March 11, 2020, Gill deposited $8,000 in cash into his security company's account and $7,000 in cash into his personal bank account. Then the next day, Eric transferred $150,000 via wire from his bank account to Gill's bank account. In that same article from Nashville.gov, later that night, Adam Carey and Brian Brockway, armed with guns, confronted Holly and Bill out in the parking lot of Holly's apartment complex. They shot Bill. The cameras picked up the audio of this happening. We know it was Bill who was killed first because you can hear Holly screaming after the gunshots. Then they drove Bill's body and Holly to the construction site where Holly was then shot twice. Afterwards, Adam drove Brian to Memphis, Tennessee, and Brian caught the first flight back to Austin, Texas, while Adam drove from Memphis to Austin. According to the indictment, Eric Mond transferred $750,000 from his bank account to Bill's bank account, which I'm unsure of the reason why, because the initial fee was $60,000 per person. So I don't know why he sent all this extra. Maybe the $60,000 was Adam and Brian's fee and the rest was for Gill since he is supervising all of this. Everyone is shocked to learn this was a professional hit because Holly and Bill's friends and families all believed that Bill had murdered Holly, then turned the gun on himself. They were so sure of it, some friends wouldn't even go to Bill's funeral. But that wasn't the case. Bill had blackmailed a man who used Holly's services as an escort. The man didn't want to pay up, so he had a team of elite hitmen take care of them. A weird part to this, Eric Mond actually left a Google review for Gill's security firm, SpearTip. He wrote, "SpearTip is very professional. They get the job done in expedited time. I couldn't imagine using anyone else." Gill responded to Eric's review by saying, "Thank you for the kind words. Always a pleasure working with you." Eric had multiple choices and he picked the worst one. First, and the easiest choice would have been that he could have not cheated on his wife. Another choice was that he could have went to the FBI and said, "Look, this person is blackmailing me. I don't know what this is about." He could have come clean to his wife before Bill told her everything. Eric had a prenuptial agreement signed by his wife Sherry before their wedding in 1999. If his wife decided to divorce him, she wouldn't get anything. Eric would get to keep his fortune. Instead, he paid almost $1 million to make this problem go away. Then he was still caught. He was willing to have 2 people murdered just to preserve his reputation. Now it's time for the arrests. It's December 2021, almost 2 years after the murders. We've got 4 men in 3 different states, so a few different agencies are involved. Adam Carey was arrested by a special tactical team at 4 o'clock in the morning near Richland, North Carolina. Brian Brockway was arrested in San Diego in the middle of his son's Marine Corps boot camp graduation ceremony. Everyone saw him being let out in handcuffs during the ceremony. Their boss, Gill, was flying back from a security conference in Las Vegas. He was met at the airport and placed under arrest. And lastly, Eric Mond. They don't have enough on him to place him under arrest at this point, but they have FBI agents secretly following his every move, so he's under constant surveillance. He was coming back from a hunting trip with a friend. They need something solid in order to place him under arrest, so they have Gill in custody, and they're going to ask Gill to call Eric, and they will record the conversation. Gill is willing to do anything in order to maybe get a lighter sentence down the road, so he agrees to this. Gill calls Eric, and Eric is driving. He pulls over and steps out of the car so his friend in the passenger seat couldn't hear the conversation. The police are listening to every word. Gill lies to Eric and tells him that one of the shooters is back in town and he wants an extra $25,000 to keep quiet about what they did. He somehow found out you were the guy who hired us. He knows your identity. Eric tells him, "All right, I'll give him his little 25 grand. I do appreciate what he did for me, but I think this guy needs to go away as well so he doesn't pop back up in a few months." Side note, he's implying that he wants this guy killed. He tells Gill, "I'll just send the $150,000 wire." They hang up, and police are satisfied that this is all they need to make an arrest. He not only had knowledge of the murders in Nashville, but he's also soliciting another murder. Eric gets back in his car and continues driving for a moment before being pulled over by Texas state troopers who promptly place him under arrest. Everyone is shocked this prominent figure in the city of Austin was arrested for murder. In 2023, they all go to trial. The jury trial took almost 3 weeks. Eric Mond, Brian Brockway, and Adam Carey were found guilty of murder for hire with death resulting. Gil Peled pled guilty to the same charges, but the difference was he agreed to cooperate and he testified for the prosecution, and he had that phone call he did to Eric to get him to show the police that he was involved. So the judge at the time of sentencing will take that into consideration. But in 2024, a district judge agreed to have all 4 men receive a new trial due to administrative errors that allowed certain pieces of evidence not be shown to the jury. None of these men have been handed a sentence yet. They are all in prison but awaiting their new trial. It could be a couple more years before we know how long they'll get. After going through everything that happened to Holly Williams and Bill Lanway, it's easy to get caught up in the timeline and the evidence and the big shocking moments. But at the end of the day, this isn't just some wild story. These were two real people whose lives ended in an incredibly tragic way. Holly and Bill had a messy, complicated relationship like a lot of people do, but theirs had all these extra layers. Even when their bodies were found in that crashed car, the whole city of Nashville felt it. Even if you didn't know them personally, the story made you feel. It was one of those cases where everyone was suddenly talking about it. Coworkers, neighbors, people standing in line at the grocery store. The details were shocking and disturbing, and once the investigation got rolling and more information came out, the narrative that this was a murder-suicide changed. Now everyone knew Holly was an escort and one of her customers was being blackmailed by her boyfriend, and the guy put out a hit on him. Holly and Bill were more than just a true crime case. Holly was someone with friends who adored her and a personality that made you like her. Bill was someone that his family and friends loved. He was someone who had people rooting for him. Bill and Holly laughed, they joked, they had normal days and big plans just like anybody else. They also had really awful days, and at times their relationship was super toxic. Bill had his share of demons, so did Holly, but Bill lost a child and became a not-so-great person towards the end. He didn't murder anyone, but he was abusive to Holly and his ex-wife. His friends try to remember the person he was before he changed, and many wish they would have stepped in and said something to him. Bill is buried at the Smith Austin Wallace Cemetery in Nashville. When I saw his headstone, I realized he died just one day after his birthday. Holly was cremated. Rest in peace to Holly Williams and Bill Lanway. That's it for this week, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care. And much love to you all.